We are peeling back the pages of Eternia with the storyteller who brought its battles, secrets, heroes, and villains to life, the writer behind the MOTU Origins mini-comics, Joshua Skye. We're delving deep into the mind that shaped these great legendary tales right now on Toy Habits.
And before we go live, smash that like button, turn on notifications, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss a beat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Toy Habits. I'm Michael.
And I'm the Toy Sorceress, and you're watching a special interview edition of Toy Habits. How you doing?
That is right. We are diving straight into the pages of the MOTU Origins mini comics where the battles are bigger, the stakes are higher, and the stories that bring Eternia to life. We have a special guest who's been shaping those epic adventures you've been reading about in the Masters of the Universe Origins mini comics, from the heroic clashes to the villainous schemes. He's been crafting the words that makes the action pop right off the page. Get ready to go behind the scenes of the storytelling that powers the power. We're so excited to bring on our special MOTU Origins mini comics writer and writer for Heavy Metal, Illustrated, and Forbidden Futures, Joshua Skye. Welcome to Toy Habits. So happy you are here.
So great to be here. Thanks for having me, guys. It's a real honor.
Oh my God.
Welcome, Josh. It's an honor for us to have you on the show. This is amazing.
Yes.
Well, it's funny. You guys like read and collect the toys, but I actually watch your program. So it's like, oh, I'm on it now.
Oh, really? Oh, that's so cool. It's like when worlds collide, right?
Yeah.
So cool. So cool. Awesome. It was amazing meeting you briefly at Comic-Con, and my gosh, that week was such a whirlwind. Have you had a chance to catch your breath since then?
Oh man, yeah. When I eventually got home, I just like slept quite a bit. I just kind of slept in and recovered. I have an interesting relationship with San Diego Comic-Con because every year I have like a crisis of like, am I gonna go? I should go, because I'm not a crowds guy and I'm not into FOMO, and like San Diego Comic-Con is that in spades, right? Yeah.
It's almost like an understatement, but yes. Right. It's insane.
It's like pouring all of New York City into like a comic book store is what it feels like.
Oh my gosh.
It's just so overwhelming and tremendous. And I just feel like I'm constantly missing out because there's so much awesome stuff happening simultaneously. But I go and I do enjoy it. And it's kind of like going to camp. You see friends, you see all sorts of familiar faces, and you buy a bunch of stuff. So it's super fun.
Oh my God. Speaking of a bunch of stuff, the five of us all traveled down in our car. It's an SUV, but and between five of us, so I guess my husband wasn't buying exclusives, but helped me buy for a few friends. Everyone was buying stuff, and I'm like, how are we going to get this all back? Because we had luggage for five people that the car was packed to the brim, and I'm like, we got to get all this stuff back home. And literally, thank God Michael flew from San Diego, but we had Mega J and his friend Danny with us. And literally, they were both buried in the back seat of the car under their SDCC exclusives. It was hilarious.
Buried with all the new friends you made.
Yes, it was cool. And they kept bringing back more stuff every day. And I was like, oh my God, we're never going to get it home.
It's like, hey guys, I found another Eternia playset.
Yeah. I know, right?
They came back on the last Saturday morning with their, those big Comic-Con bags, full of stuff.
Yeah.
I usually skip out on the No, I usually skip out on those bags, but the Alien Earth one looked too cool to pass up, so I got that one. It was great.
That was cool.
I always end up with the jumbo, oversized Hasbro Pulse, those ridiculous oversized bags. It's crazy. I actually got stopped at security at the airport because they thought it was too big to take on the plane. Yeah, and then I was like, there's actually not a ton of there's a lot of room in here, so I just smashed it down, and they're like, oh yeah, I could fit in an overhead bin. So I was like,
yeah, that thing's massive, to say the least.
Well, awesome. Well, Josh, it's great to have you on. And before we jump into the mini comics, themselves, we'd love to just kind of start with your own origin story. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your origin?
I grew up on Maui, Hawaii, on a very tropical island, and it was really great growing up there. Like many of you guys, I grew up watching cartoons and collecting comics. I mean, I remember vividly the first time seeing comic book art on, you know, the playground. It was actually like Marvel comic book cards from like the Impel like 91 series. I remember thinking, like, what is that? That looks, I need that, you know? And from there, I just kind of, you know, living on Maui, it was kind of hard to get collectibles and such, right? Because it's a remote place. And I'm sure a lot of people who live in remote places can like relate to this. So like when you got we had one comic shop. We had, but you know, there was retail out there, of course, with like Kmart and such. So, you know, I remember like definitely trolling the toy aisles and such. And I also, you know, Hawaii's kind of a transient place in certain ways too. So you'd have a lot of tourists and they'd like leave their books behind, and those would get collected at like the Friends of the Library. And I really got into collecting like science fiction paperbacks, which I still collect and avidly read. So I grew up just loving science fiction, loving comic books, all that sort of stuff, loving collecting toys, and not really putting it all together until I started getting into the history that it's all connected, right?
Yeah.
That's all really a celebration of imagination and futurism and adventure. So I graduated high school and I went to Brooklyn College, New York City. I had like,
wow.
I ended up living in my uncle's.
I mean, what a change from like the tropics all the way to like the concrete, you know?
Yeah.
City.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
yeah. The island, you know, the islands that make up like New York City and like Hawaii are very different, right? One is like a tropical archipelago. The one's made of concrete, glass, and steel, right?
Yeah.
And like the population at the time of Hawaii, of Maui at least, was like maybe 100,000, 120,000 max. But then you get to like Brooklyn and it's like what? It was like the fourth largest city in America by itself, let alone New York City, which was just like jam-packed. So it was definitely culture shock. But, you know, I remember like being like, oh my gosh, there's like a bookstore here that's like solely focused to like science fiction. And I'd be like, oh, wait a minute, there's like places like Forbidden Planet and all this sort of stuff that, you know, there are multiple comic shops, not just one comic book store. So, and libraries were more than one story. And that was like really mind-blowing to me. So the access really increased. But again, I lived in my uncle's attic and I like went to college and I studied screenwriting and stuff. And I started interning. And I remember, you know, I got very lucky. My first internship, was at The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, which was like a very hot show at the time. And awesome. That was a really great experience. And I knew I wanted to be a writer for sure. But I didn't understand like the terrain of writing as like as a business or as a field even really. I was a kid, and I remember I remember speaking to the writer's assistant at The Daily Show. This is when like The Daily Show with Jon Stewart was like the hot series on TV.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, he told me that he had like interned at Marvel, and like I was like, oh yeah, Marvel's in New York City. I should totally try that. And I applied and I got in and I really worked my way up from the bottom, which is like a whole other saga. But I spent 5 years at Marvel, and it was a very fascinating time at Marvel because it was an era when they were just launching the cinematic universe was just hitting its stride with the release of Iron Man 1. I remember like going to a screening of that and people were like, this is going to be big. Yeah. Right. But nobody knew how big it really was going to be. And, I was there during the Disney acquisition, which was crazy because I remember being like, wow, we're like one of the few companies not owned by like a mega conglomerate media. And then like
boom. Yeah, how'd that work?
I remember opening an email and just seeing Mickey Mouse, and I was like, oh, that's over.
Oh, no.
Which was great. Honestly, like it makes sense as like a home for Marvel. I mean, Disney is like, you know, they're really good at taking care of their brands and such. So, but I was there for 5 years. And again, I wanted to write, and Marvel, what I learned there was that like a lot of what you read about the history of like the place you're at, usually things have changed so much that it doesn't quite apply the same way than the current state. So like when I was at Marvel, I thought, oh, I could just be on the inside and like break in. But because I was reading about people like Peter Dave and all these other comic book writers that I admired that were just like in the building. And back then they couldn't give away writing assignments, right? You know, like Larry Hama, who writes G.I. Joe to this day, like he'd be like, nobody wanted to do licensed books, right? And, you know, and everything had like flipped. Like by the time I got into Marvel under Ike Perlmutter's regime, who was the CEO at the time, you had to be like a best-selling writer to break into comics, right? It was really hard to break into comics at that time, and still is not easy, quite frankly, when it comes to these licensed properties and such. And sorry if I'm going too deep in the weeds. Please let me know if I am.
No, it's all good.
So I just remember being there, and I ended up writing 2 Avengers spec scripts because like the Avengers movie had like just come out, and I got an agent, and like as soon as the agent like handed me a contract, they're like, "So when are you moving to Los Angeles?" So I dropped everything. I moved to LA, and I've been here ever since, and it's been great. And you know, Hollywood is like a really crazy place, and I would go around and, you know, do that whole like circuit of like pitching and stuff, and you know, but again, like everything's connected, right? Like nobody knew, like the streaming wars were just starting at that time, and TV was changing, and movies were changing, and like social media was really entering the fore, and people didn't really, you know, not everyone really put 2 and 2 together. At least I didn't, because, you know, hindsight's 2020, that all these things were kind of like merging, as they still are to a large degree. And so I felt like I couldn't really control anything, but what I could control was just like making my own stuff. So I started just writing science fiction short stories and fantasy short stories and getting those published. I didn't care where. I just wanted to make stuff that I cared about. And through that, I started getting credits on like animated series like Ben 10, and I started like serving a writer's room for Nico and the Sword of Light, which was a fantasy series. Yeah, it was super fun.
My son watched Ben 10.
Oh yeah, Ben 10's like a great series. I know the creators; they're really great guys. Man of Action, they're so cool. That's the name of their company. And what ended up happening was I wrote a short story. This is before AI really dropped, right? And it was probably one of the most emotional things I've like written, or like it was really a breakthrough I felt for my writing. And it was about a guy just trying to find a job in an age where like AI had taken over, right? So I wrote it, and what it was really about was I was in between work for a while, and I was taking care of a family member, and it was about being unemployed, right? Which apparently everyone in Hollywood goes through at some point in their career. So when I wrote it, I was very brutally honest, but from a science fictional standpoint. And I think just it really resonated with a lot of executives, because a lot of executives in Hollywood are afraid if they'll ever work again. A lot of people who are writers and creatives are afraid if they'll ever work again. And it just kind of got me a lot of meetings, and eventually some people at Mattel who I'd known for a while had started reading some of my stuff, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to write for Masters of the Universe?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, sure." I didn't believe them. I really didn't believe them, because, you know, in Hollywood, like so much stuff falls through, right?
Yeah.
So I said, "Sure." And they said, "Great." And they set up like a couple of meetings and stuff. And I went through the meetings, and they're very nice people. And at the end of the meeting, they're like, "All right, well, we have this like series of deadlines, and here you go. And can you get this like Minicomics script to us by this date?" And the date was like oddly familiar. And I was like, "Sure." And they logged off. And I remember sitting there, and it felt like literally someone had handed me keys to a Lamborghini.
Oh my God.
And that Lamborghini was Master of the Universe. You know, I remember just kind of like, I couldn't believe they had given that to me. Not because like I don't believe in myself or anything like that, but I just, you know, I just didn't really, so many things fall through for everyone out here, right? I'm just being honest in terms of like the reality of entertainment. So the reason that date was oddly familiar was when I looked at the calendar, was that was like the same week I was getting married, right? So I was like, well, I don't want
like your wedding, the same week, but not the same day. I was going to say your wedding day didn't like.
Right. So I was like, oh my gosh. And just to be forthright with you guys, like it was a really trippy experience also, because I was collecting Origins figures.
Well, that was going to be my question to you, is, are you a collector, and what's in your collection? Like, are you a Masters of the Universe fan? Was this like a dream come true because like you love the toys and you're like, oh my God, I get to write for them?
It was to me, it wasn't even like, it was like a dream that was like, I was almost like I didn't even like I'm like that would never happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I remember being a kid in
Unbelievable.
Hawaii and I'd watch like Star Trek Next Generation before like as my bedtime stories and being like, man, I would love to be a sci-fi writer. I'm like, that's such a silly dream, but like secretly I really would want it, you know? And I would I would put like writing for Master Universe like that. Like it didn't really seem conceivable, I guess. Just because I felt like so many people would want to do it. You know, it's like, hey, do you want to write for He-Man? I'm like, yeah, me and every nerd out here under the sun, sure, right? So like fellow nerd, of course.
Yeah.
But so yeah, but I totally I was collecting the Origins line, and so I had a very trippy experience of collecting a toy line, and then all of a sudden working on the toy line I was collecting, which was a very surreal experience in many ways. Yeah.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
That's awesome.
So, but anyway, I didn't want to, like, people ask me like, what's your goal with Master of the Universe? I'm like, not to screw up this gig, like, like just to do the best as I can. Cause I just feel really, quite frankly, blessed and honored and to shepherd this. And I just want to do right by people who care about this, you know, cause I care about it. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That is so cool.
Yeah, that's really neat. What's your earliest memory of Masters of the Universe and kind of what pulled you into MOTU?
I think my earliest memory was being in upstate New York with my father and his best friend, and they had put cartoons on the TV, and must have been like, gosh, it must have been sometime in like the late 80s or something, mid to late 80s. But I remember like there was like these commercials for MOTU, and it was just on, and I remember watching it. And then I remember it was almost like cut to it. My second memory of MOTU was like having a viewfinder of like for Master Universe.
Yeah,
right?
I love those.
And my third,
I gotta do this because I gotta.
Oh yeah, oh that's awesome. I just love how you have that just like
it's my thing. That's why I gotta
ready to draw.
I say this every week. I can't believe all the stuff she just pulls out or just has at the ready.
I have actual viewfinders in the other room, but
it really is.
You guys would shock at what I would have like at my disposal, but because I have the background, it like shades it, so it's not like visually. I can't really visually show it. But no, that's awesome. No, I mean, amazing toy collections. See, the way my room is set, my office is set up is my wife. I share my office with my wife. So like her stuff is all behind me. So everyone thinks I would like collect like Victorian, like, you know, English lady glasses and plates. I'm like, no. If you see this side of the room, it's all MOTU all day, guys. It's comics and all.
That's hilarious. So you got to figure out a way to rotate your desk.
Right. So anyway, so where were we? We were talking about
just your earliest memory of just being
so
pulled
the third core memory. I remember that my neighbor came over, right? And he was like, check this out. And it was a Mosquito action figure. It was like with blood pumping action from his chest, right? And I remember like looking at this thing, and I looked around and I was like, can I borrow this? It's like, what are you going to do with it? I'm like, play with it. Can I borrow it? He's like, I don't really. I'm like, thanks for lending it to me, right? So then he came over. He came over like a week later. He's like, hey, do you have my Mosquito figure? I'm like, can I borrow it for longer? And he went, you could just keep it. And I felt so bad. I remember getting it, trying to give it back to him. And he's like, no, you keep it. So I don't feel bad about that anymore because I guess it was like meant to be. But anyway, but no, that was my like third core memory of it.
Wow.
That's
awesome.
So cool. Yeah. I mean, I think we all have those memories that draw us into particular, toys or, and things like that. So really
I was actually going to ask, do you have any of your childhood like toys or any of your childhood MOTU toys?
Sadly, many of my childhood toys were lost in the sands of divorce and like, and moving and stuff like that. Yeah. So I think that was also part of I feel like a lot of my, growing up and like coming of age was like tied to comics and action figures and science fiction and stuff like that. And that's why I have this kind of like ultra affinity for it personally, because it helped me get through like those really hard times, as many of us it did, as fans.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So you've told us kind of how you broke into it with Mattel, contacting you. What's actually the first project you worked on, for for the MOTU mini comics?
The first project was the mini comic. I think it was for Wave 11, and it was for MOTU Origins, Wave 11, and the story was Rise of the Snake Man. It was the entire Rise of the Snake Man story arc is when I started, and it was great. It was super fun. I got to work with Robert Rudman, and Robert Rudman wrote all the mini comics preceding that. And Robert Rudman, you guys had pinged me and asked who like had written some of the Transformers crossover.
Yes.
It was also I don't actually call him Robert Rudman. I call him the Great Robert Rudman. I don't even know if he knows I say that, but I call him the Great Robert Rudman in my head. So the Great Robert Rudman, he wrote pretty much everything up until Wave 11 for Origins. And then he's written pretty much all the crossovers, I believe, including the much loved Ninja Turtles crossover.
Oh, neat.
So yeah, Robert Rudman is just a really great guy. I've learned a lot from him. He's a great writer. And for a long time, he was the voice. He does the copy, of the voice. He also does like a lot of
voiceovers
copy as well for Mattel. Was like the core writer behind that.
Oh,
so a lot of the voice we think of in terms of the packaging, a lot of it's from him. And I've learned a lot from him. He's a really great guy. But ever since Wave 11 up and through today, the core mainline and all the Mattel creation stuff, the non-cross license stuff, the main MOTU stuff is for me.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. So you talked about Robert a bit. Were there any other big mentors or influences in your life who helped you get started in writing for toy lines? I know you got approached by Mattel, and then Robert was a big mentor for you, but was there any other, that you looked up to?
Well, I mean, I would say I've had a lot of peers, everyone at Mattel has been really cool, really passionate. They really understand their brands, they care, and they're fans like you and I,
which is awesome.
through and through. And they're very, they want to do a good job, and they care about this stuff. I would say a lot of my
one reason the work is so good is because you and the other people that work on Mattel are passionate about it.
Oh yeah,
they are fans.
Yeah,
right?
You take an Origins figure or Masterverse figure, you feel the love on every layer of that.
I was gonna say it's made with love, even
absolutely, it emanates. It just
Frogmonger.
Frogmonger was so fun. I had a lot of fun writing.
I've been playing with him in the pool.
Yeah,
that's why
Frogmonger was really a fun one to write. What was that? The Hoarder Frogmonger. That was a story.
Yeah, it's like it's like everything from the packaging, the figure, the comic. It's like everything is a total package.
It's a total package deal. But no, I think all the peers that I've worked with, I've really enjoyed working with them. And of course, I'm an admirer of their package design. Like Axel, man, is wow, his artwork's great. Simon Acker, all the artists that are working on this stuff, all the guys on the minis have been really great.
Yes. I share something in common with Axel.
Riley. Go on.
We're both from the same home country. He is Argentinian, as am I.
Oh wow, that's very cool. Yeah,
I know. Yeah. So if I ever get to run into him someday, I'd love to speak Spanish.
I often call the Toy Sorceress our Argentinian exclusive, because they're there's MOTU Arts exclusive, there's G.I. Joe exclusive. She's our Argentinian exclusive.
And it's actually so cool because in learning and being in the industry and a fan of all this, I didn't realize how many toys were had such a rich history from Argentinian lines that came out and are kind of grail pieces now.
Yeah, I think a couple of artists for MOTU are out of Argentina. Definitely Axel, but there's definitely a strong fan base in general in Latin America. That's it.
The one that also works.
Is it Fetch?
Fetch Francisco. Yep. Sorry, they're both.
Fetch is super talented. I'm not sure where he's from, but he's super.
He's Argentinian.
I just honestly try to learn from everywhere. I try to learn from reading tons and tons of nonfiction and fiction, a lot of science fiction and fantasy. I try to learn from reading as much and watching as much MOTU lore as I can. I mean, the current slate of TV shows have been incredible, spearheaded by Ted Biaselli and Rob David. I mean, those are great, and Kevin Smith. The Dark Horse stuff written by Tim Seeley has been great. But I love past stuff too. All the mini comics from the 80s, I read those. I try to read all the interviews. Wow. Larry Houston's been awesome. I've got to hang out. I did an interview with him that one day I should release. I think there's only one recording, and I have it, of that interview where we got to talk about working on the Minicomics past and present.
Oh wow!
There was I got to hang out with Don Glut, but the attitudes of the elder statesmen versus like the current generation is just so different, because back then it was like a gig to them. They didn't like grow up loving it. They grew up like loving Flash Gordon and Prince Valiant and the Marvel comics of the 60s, which still remain awesome. But like, we grew up on MOTU. We grew up on G.I. Joe. We grew up.
And those lines are still here today. So do you think we're in like the golden age of toy collecting because the kids that grew up with these lines and they were so ingrained in their childhood, it's such a part of them, and now they're adults to be, creatives and in the industry, I think bring that much more of that care, that love, that passion into the new product that they're producing for these lines, because it was such a part of their childhood. And I think that's so incredible.
No. Yeah, I think we're definitely in an excellent, amazing time for collecting. I hope it keeps going. I think a lot of it is going to be contingent on us our generation raising our kids on it and giving them permission to be imaginative, encouraging them to be imaginative and to create their own stories. I like to tell people, like, to me, like when you take a MOTU action figure, there's multiple layers of story. There's the card art. There's the card art on the back. There's the copy. There's the mini comic. And there's stories that the fans themselves create. And I'm sure epic sagas, how many epic sagas in the playground were lost because, it was just that moment where those kids were playing with those toys and they could see and they were there, right?
Thousands of
or a parent was playing with their kids with these, with this amazing ecosystem and universe of action figures. So, I think that it's really up to us. I like to take my extras and I give them to, family, like my sister-in-law. I gave them a bunch of 80s extras that I had of He-Man toys and even some of my extra origins because they need to be raised on that stuff, and they're going to go out and their friends are like, what's that, right? So I feel like it's up to us. So I try to take my extras that, don't get me wrong, they were like mint condition, like all the accessories and everything, like
you're not giving away like a key granddaughter.
They were for kids, right? So they were played with. So I feel like it's important to take our extras and pass them on.
I love that.
And to take the ones, give them a new life, give them a new home where they're going to really be loved, and to teach our kids that if, for those of us interested in continuing this legacy, not just of MOTU, but of toy collecting in general, and really the spirit of play.
I love the spirit of play is great because I think it's with all the digital media around, like that could get lost right on this generation. So I love that you are passing your stuff down so kids from this generation can also kind of be steeped in it and instilled. That's really, really cool.
Absolutely.
Thanks. And I think we should all do it, honestly. I mean, don't get me wrong. Again, if you have like a mock or min-on card, like He-Man, like keep that, right? But like, if you've got like one that's been beat up and chewed up and it's like your 8th He-Man and like, it's just in a box, pass it on,
Absolutely.
Pass it on, like give it to a kid. So that kid could get into it and go buy the toys and get into it, talk to their friends about it. But not just for MOTU, I think just toys in general. I think toys in general.
I love that. Yeah. And then kind of going back to what you were saying about the stories on the playground, I wanted to talk about just the creative process for a little bit around just writing the mini comics themselves. So when you create the story for the mini comic, can you just kind of walk us through that process? So like, what does that entail? And what's it about? Would love to know.
So the process has changed over the like several years. I think I've been working on MOTU Origins. So initially there was like a learning curve where I'm like, okay, like what can I and can't I do? And honestly, everyone I've worked with at Mattel has been like, and honestly, Tim Seeley told me this separately, and he said, like, we're here to make toys, not break toys. And I'm like, that's such a great statement. I feel like that really this what we're trying to do, right? So Mattel has really given me a tremendous amount of freedom to work on this stuff, and they, as long as it's done with intent and with that sort of spirit in mind. So a lot of my process originally was I would write like a 1-page outline, and I would hand it in. People like, okay, good, you're good to go to story. But after a while, I feel like I kind of just got the hang of it, and I would just kind of start writing the adventures. Sometimes in a single sitting. Sometimes it was something over the. There have been times where I've sat down and I've written like 2 adventures back to back, or one adventure like in one sitting. Like the initial draft. And there have been times where it really took a few weeks to be like, what am I trying to say here? What am I trying to crack? What is this connected to? Yeah. And so in that way, my process has changed in the sense that I probably don't outline as much. The last major outline I could think of that I worked on, and again, this is just my own process. This isn't, I can't speak for anyone else's process. This isn't like a company process. This is me as a dude who's a freelancer process, right? So my own personal like homebrew. But I would say that the last outline I can really recall writing was for the Horde Invasion story arc, which has been 5 issues plus a few ancillary ones, if I recall. So that one I wanted to like really understand, what am I trying to do with this arc here, and write a blueprint for that.
That's cool.
So part of the mini comics is weaving together, the characters that are in that wave, telling a story about them and trying to get them integrated into the lore. But then there's also going to be, future characters that they want to weave into the lore. Do you have the ability to create original characters in your storylines, or is Mattel like, hey, here's a list of characters, write a story about them and integrate them into your mini comic?
I mean, like, generally, and this is like common knowledge, so I'm not saying anything proprietary.
Yeah, we're not asking about specific names of characters,
right.
but just the process.
So generally, like, what I'll say is that they'll be like, hey, we need a mini comic for this character. Honestly, people go all the time like, what's coming out? And I'll be like, you probably know better than me, because especially here at Toy Habits, there have been times where I've like had Toy Habits on, and they're like, this is what we think is coming out, or this is coming out, and I'll be like, oh, I didn't even know that. And then I'll check my email. I'll check my email and be like, Josh, can you write a mini for this character? I'm like, okay, like, sure, But I Toy Habits said this was going to come out a week ago.
We'll give you some pre-thinking material, right?
Right. So of course, you guys have said conjecturally, like, this might come out, and that doesn't necessarily come true either. But a lot of times, there have been times where I've seen news here before I even learn of any of that stuff. But what I will say is that, my goal is to just try to tell the best stories that are true to these characters as possible, and reward fans. That the more you pay attention, the more you care. But also, I do believe in the Marvel ethos from Stan Lee, in the sense that like every comic book should be someone's first comic book. Like, so from anyone who's like a hardcore MOTU fan, I want them to be like, that was a fun MOTU story and I enjoyed it, and it made me want to play with my toys and display them and look at them more, and invested in me more. To some kid who's at like their aunt's house and their uncle gave them a He-Man figure, and they pop it open and they're like, well, what's this? It's a mini comic. It's a rainy day. Okay, I'll read this. And they're like, wow, that adventure really took me there, and I want to learn more about this, and this was really fun, right?
Yeah.
So like, to me, that's the goal, right? So have I written new characters in? Yeah, but I wouldn't say it's my primary. That's not my primary mission, And again, some of that stuff was like kind of early in my learning curve, like Cosmic He-Man, which was like a character that I wrote in, but that was still based on pre-established lore. I believe it was the Cosmic Crystal, which would give someone the ultimate power. And I was reading about that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I forgot where it was from. I forgot if it was from like a European like a comic series, or if it was from Filmation. But I think it was from like one of the foreign comic series. But I remember reading about that, and I'd be like, well, what would He-Man look like with the ultimate power?
So I know obviously it's a comic book, right? So there's bubbles, that people are talking and conversations and things like that. But like the artists are illustrating to your stories. So do you also have like little like directional information, like something happens?
Oh yeah, sure.
And then other parts of it are like the actual text of what's happening in the comic book, right? Like what they're saying, the characters say things to each other.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's common in like all forms of comic book writing, but I think what's unique about comic book writing versus other forms is like there's a few things operating, and one of those things that you're describing things there's a layer of description obviously for the reader, but there's a
Yeah.
layer of description really between you and the artist. And that's where, to me, like comics is like jazz, because it's like that relationship you have with that artist, or that the artist has with the material, right? You can really outline and blueprint that and add voice to that and give them something, hopefully, that's going to really help them uplift the material and bring it alive. But for the mini comics, they're particularly challenging because, and I felt very lucky because I was really into short story writing and reading, as I mentioned, and the mini comics are short stories, but they're really short. I mean, they average like 6 pages, 12 pages, 12 pages if you're lucky, sometimes 8 pages. So with 6-page story, I mean, let's break it down from like a technical standpoint. That's, 2 pages per act in a 3-act structure. The pages on average can take a maximum of 6 panels, and this is just common like comic book knowledge if we're going to break it down, right? So again, nothing proprietary I'm telling anyone. And then 6 panels, that means 36 panels maximum. Before it gets too wordy, each panel could maybe take 2 sentences, depending on the length of those sentences. So you don't have like a ton of space to really tell your story. So in that 3-act structure, I'm trying to establish a story, establish a problem, and establish a resolution, introduce cool concepts, because it's a fantasy science fiction property, right? Like, and trying to move you as a reader, hopefully, so that you care more about this. I really just want people to care. I think.
And I've noticed that. What I was going to say is I noticed at the end of the comics that there's always like kind of a most of the time like a happy resolution, which I like. I hate when things end like sad or someone dies or something bad happens, and then that's the end, and you're like, well, why did it have to end that way? The writer didn't have to do that. We could have tied a nice bow around it and had a good happy feeling at the end of the story and enjoyed it better. And I know that, like, I think you make a conscious effort of making the reader and the fan feel good at the end of a comic, because you have, kind of uplifting endings to your conflicts or whatever are happening. And there is that something that you do consciously to make the fan enjoy it better and not come back out feeling kind of like, that I can't believe that happened, or,
Yeah, I think what I try to do is I try to give the reader something, right? Because that's how you create value, right? And I think the way you give that to readers through entertaining them, but also moving them emotionally so they become attached to the material, right? So for me, like, being optimistic is a core tenet, I think, to the Master Universe.
Love it.
It's great.
To Masters of the Universe, right? Like, He-Man, and it's refreshingly optimistic, and it's because of its age. And I think that's something we really need more. Like, do people need more depression in their lives right now? I don't think so.
Exactly.
Like, what can we give them? We can give them hope. We can empower them, right? I mean, Master Universe, one of its core themes is like empowerment, right? Like, I have the power, we have the power, right? So having power, empowering yourself, I think, is a thing. So I feel like if there's one thing I think I want to like do for the reader also is like empower them, right? Because that to me is like true to Master Universe, right?
Absolutely.
So like, and that was again something in my learning curve for He-Man, because like, I came from Marvel, so Marvel's like, heroes like Peter Parker kind of like conflicted, right? And like, what's his name? Norm Macdonald, comedian, has like a really good joke about superhero movies. He's like, I don't like all these superhero movies now, because especially like during like the 2000s, post 9/11, right? And where superheroes are like conflicted, like Batman's like, who's worse, me or the Joker? And it's like, well, the Joker by a long shot. Like, He-Man doesn't have that. He-Man is good, right? He-Man is good, and he's confident in that. So I feel like confidence in readers. She-Ra is confident, right? So, and that's something worth talking about briefly too, is if you notice, like in the history of science fiction fantasy, like from like the 30s, like the golden age, you have like very optimistic, youthful sort of feelings behind these stories. Then you get to like the 60s, the new wave, and it became very experimental. And it became darker for sure because of the Vietnam War. To like, and through the 70s, then the 80s, like there's a return to optimism, and that's where you see a lot of these embryonic, I call them the embryonic age, where like you had a lot of like, the birth of new franchises like G.I. Joe and Master Universe and Transformers and Star Wars and Thundercats and a lot of really optimistic, colorful properties. And then 9/11 happened. And when 9/11 happened, all of a sudden, if you look at all the Batman movies and all the superhero movies, sorry, do we log off?
No, we're good.
Okay,
I touched my monitor by mistake.
Oh, no worries. So
it's a touch screen.
But when we get to like 9/11 and post 9/11 for a long time, it was like, it's dark and the world's really harsh. And I'm like, okay, but what does that give people, right? What does that give people? That doesn't give them anything, right?
Doesn't give them hope.
Yeah. So not that those movies would at the end give you hope and really make you earn it. And I think there's merit in that. But I feel like it's looking back at some of the movies, those are kind of corny because everyone's like emo, and like the world's a dark place. So I feel like there should be a return to optimism. And He-Man has always been refreshingly optimistic. And I feel like it gives people, permission to be optimistic. I feel,
I love that.
Those are my thoughts on that.
Love that. And then kind of looking at, obviously the mini comics are packed with toys. Do you actually get to see the figure designs, either before you start writing or during your writing process? And does that influence or maybe shape, the stories that you write or the character development that you do?
I don't see a lot, actually. You guys probably end up seeing more than me. Not that Mattel's secretive with me. It's just, it's just kind of, if you really want to see the breakdown of how this stuff is done, there's a really great book that was sanctioned and released and officially licensed called, which is the Minicomics collection, that hardcover bound book that's like this big. It's an amazing collection. Actually, all the Dark Horse hardcover books are, all the Dark Horse books are great in general, but those hardcovers, those core hardcovers, I think every fan of MOTU should own them. They're incredible. And the Minicomics collection has all these great interviews, and they talk about the process in the 80s. And what's amazing is a lot of the process then still applies now, except instead of actually sending physical mail, right, like we would email, so you would have to update their head from a 21st century standpoint. But no, I don't see a tremendous amount of material, honestly. I see some images, usually not of a complete toy, usually like concept stuff, sort of. And, but you remember a lot of these figures have been made previously in the 80s, right? So if for example, I know what Too Bad looks like, so when that SDCC exclusive that I wrote for came out, before that came out, I knew who Too Bad was. There's history of Too Bad. Same thing for He-Man. I've seen He-Man. So if they're doing a different version of He-Man, it's not like I'm reinventing the wheel here, right? But characters like Frogmonger, that was very new. That was very new to me, and that was really fun. Writing his origin story and making that was really a big highlight in this in my run so far.
Oh, that's neat. That's awesome. Yeah, and it's fun that the Toy Sorceress just has Frogmonger there.
Well, the other thing is a lot of the concept art that they're using has existed for a long time, like that image of Frogmonger, kind of in that sticker. So I'd look at that and be like, all right, who is this guy? And try to extrapolate from there.
So it's funny because you say that one of the projects we did early on for the website was to kind of chronicle and look at all of the artwork for the products, the card backs and the boxes that came out, and take a look at the characters that were pictured on there and try and figure out what future releases could be. And this was early on in the line, maybe around wave 3 or 4, somewhere like that. And Frogmonger, he kept popping up in different iterations. And so we were doing this, I did this long anthology, and one was all the characters, then all the beasts and creatures, and then all the play sets. And Frogmonger kept popping up, and I was like, that would be such a cool figure. Yeah. But and with his little antenna thing he has on the back of his little jetpack, and it's so wonderful that Mattel actually made this into a character, and now he's a 3-dimensional thing in plastic form, and I love him. And he actually, this character is really special to me because his release came out on my birthday on top of it all, so it's been this special little moment in the MOTU line. But I love that you guys are able to do that, because all these things to me are are like a love letter to the fans, like kind of, you know, pulling out the little things in the lore that he was just a little image on the Grayskull great dungeon sticker from back in the 80s, and now, you know, he's this cool character. So it's wonderful that you are part of that. And speaking of, is there any moments or scenes or characters that you've had the most fun bringing to life, besides Frogmonger?
Oh man, I honestly have fun with all the adventures, even though some of them take me a little longer to crack than others because I'm working something out subconsciously. I really enjoy. I love the process of doing it. For me, it's very fun because it's an excuse to bust out on my toys. It's an excuse to look at this. I mean, look at this epic artwork behind me. It's an excuse to, you know, that's a big part of my writing process too. Sometimes I'll just stare at the art. I'm like, how do I transport readers into this? Right. Wow. So. I mean, He-Man, Master of the Universe, and She-Ra have an incredible legacy of like a who's who of incredible writers and artists and designers who worked on this, and different influential toy people as well. So I'm like trying to crack something. Sometimes it's just a great excuse to just look at cool stuff, you know, and look at my collection and see what's going on, and you know, what am I trying to work out here? But I would say some of my favorite stories have been working on Extendar was really fun. I had a
my gosh, that's actually one of my favorite mini comics, The Terror of the Techromancer. Oh my gosh, like it's funny you were talking about you know, just bringing hope, and it's like I love hearing the origin stories, and Extendar's is a really rough one, right? Like the undertone is one of like redemption, like mixed with like menace, and like the whole story arc is so cool, and you know, it kind of hints at the rise of like a dark warrior. So like I love that the way you package that whole thing.
Oh, that was really a fun story to write. I actually wrote that in New Zealand also, which was like really cool. There's a few stories where I can remember that, and Spear of Eternity, which came with Rock On, right? So sometimes when I'm trapped on an airplane and there's nowhere else to go, and I'm like, all right, now I really got to work on this adventure, and there's no distractions, right? So I'm gonna really work on this. So, or just sometimes with a sheet of paper, I'll just write notes and like subconsciously try to come up with stuff. That happened with Geldor as well. I like another part is I try to read as much as possible. So, you know, if I'm doing Extendar adventure, I'm going to read as much as I can in all the mini comics he's been in. If he's been in any episodes, I try to watch those episodes to like capture his voice. But sometimes working on an adventure, it's like you're at the edge of the universe, of the MOTU universe, because I'm like, oh, the lore literally stops here, and there's nothing about this topic. And sometimes that topic is their origin story itself. Yeah. So anytime I'm like, oh, what story am I going to write for MOTU? I'm like, oh, wait, the name of the line, an origin story, right? Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, that was a fun one for sure. So, but I would say Extendar was fun. Frogmonger was really fun. Yeah. Some of the cartoon collection figures were really like stories were really fun. There's one called Perilous Power, which, you know, coming up with the titles also is really fun. You know, Terror of the Technomancer, Perilous Power, Horde of Frogmonger. What's another one? Onslaught to Snake Mountain. That was a fun title to come up with. So coming up with these like over the top moments. But there's one adventure that came out that you guys reviewed that I enjoyed, where we had like new adventures of the New Adventures universe meeting like the MOTU, like
that was
traditional universe, and that was
cool.
That was thanks. It was so fun. It was called Future Tense. That was the name of the story. That was a really fun one to write.
Yeah, it's like He-Man meeting his alter ego in person, which is that was so freaking cool. It was so weird and like awesome at the same time. I was like, what the heck is happening?
My favorite moment in that is like when like a New Adventures He-Man is like super bummed, and then he's like, what's wrong? He's like, I thought I was the smartest. I thought I was the strongest man in the universe. And He-Man just kind of like looks at you, the reader, and he's like, yeah, not a chance. You know, he just kind of gives this like shit-eating grin. You know?
I love that. That's awesome. That's really cool. Do you have, just kind of speaking about the entire process, do you have any like fun or memorable behind the scenes stories that you can share just from working on all these projects and comics and things like that, and just working with all of the like design team and everything?
Yeah, I would say like most writers, a lot of the experience can actually be kind of you're on your, not that you're on your own, but you're kind of just like it's you and in front of your screen or your notepad, right?
Yeah.
And I would say the fun moments are like seeing it come together, like going to San Diego Comic-Con this year and seeing everyone who's been working on this stuff and hanging out and seeing the panel and seeing in those glass cases. Like a lot of the times, that was the first time I saw any of that stuff in the wild, or also just walking into a Walmart or a Target and like I didn't, and being like, oh my gosh, these figures I worked on are in there, that we all put together and put so much love in. It's just sitting there, and right for the taking, or the buying. I'll be like, oh, that's so cool.
If you can find them, right?
If you can find them,
I know, right?
But I remember walking into a store in New Zealand on like, I think the South Isle. I mean, we're talking about one of the most remote comic book stores on the planet, and walking in there and they had a Wave 11 action figure with the comic. And I was like, that is so cool. So to me, those are some of the really rewarding moments. And learning, and also just when fans like stuff, when fans are like, oh, that was a cool story. I really enjoyed that. And seeing fans enjoy it. Cause I'm like you guys, honestly. So I love this stuff. So I just want to do right by it.
Yeah.
That's incredible. If you can write like a mini comic for any MOTU character that you haven't written yet, and it doesn't have to be one that's been produced or not produced, that doesn't matter, but your favorite, and you haven't written it yet, what would it be?
Oh man, there's some really cool ones. I would love to write one for the Giants.
Yes.
That would be really cool. I would love to write one I would love to create, having written for some of these Paternian characters has really been rewarding and challenging, quite frankly. Like Hero's Journey, which came with Hero, was really tough because it was like writing a pilot for the Paternian lore in 6 pages. Right?
Yes.
That's very cool that you have it. Yeah. So that was really
this
challenging.
Is my favorite. I mean, I've got them on my shirt. Like,
yeah.
you know that. I'm not going to break out into song.
I love this Toy Habit swag you guys got, by the way. That's really cool.
I just realized, and I guess I realized my camera's been mirrored the whole time because something was accidentally checked off, but my logo was backwards. So I just fixed it. And I'm going to trip everybody out because now everything flipped around the other way, but you got to be able to read Toy Habits the right direction.
No worries. So I would say like, I love this. One of my favorite aspects also in general is the fan ecosystem of MOTU. Channels like Toy Habits, Mega J Retro, Master of the Minicomics, Mr. Home Arcade, right? Like I love all these channels. I watch all these channels, so I think it's really cool. And there are many others, that all are doing, that are pouring love. I feel like when love is poured into something, people could just tell and they can't help but start loving it themselves, I guess. You know what I mean? Like they could feel the effort and,
the enthusiasm and the joy that comes out of things. And it's like when you're talking about new stuff that's going to come out and you're just personally so excited about it. It's not like we're just like reporting the news, like, okay, here's toy news and this is going to come out. We're fans. We love it. And like you can tell, I get exuberant and the joy comes out of my face. And, when Hero was finally announced, and I remember Michael digging up the photos of him the morning before it actually hit, and we were hoping it was going to happen. I almost went through the ceiling. So having that actual genuine love and joy for the things that we're reporting on and we get to talk about, and we spend all of these hours, in hard work, because this is all hard work, but it's because we love it and we want to help the line succeed. We want to keep the lore going. We want to carry on MOTU to other future generations. And it's why we try so hard to really create a community and spread the word. And your work absolutely does that, because you're carrying the stories to kids that like you said, that picking it up and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do on a rainy Sunday afternoon? Oh, thanks, Aunt, whoever, like you gave me this little toy. Let me read this book. This is really cool. And they get into the story and you're creating that whole world for them. And the fact that you're able to have that voice and carry on the lore and the legacy of a line that we all grew up with and that we love, and then we get to see carry on today is incredible. So thank you, Josh, for doing
Thanks
that.
so much. No, I appreciate you guys. I just want to say that, like, it is a huge privilege that I would never want to take for granted working on this.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people care about it. And I also believe that every story I get to write is really an opportunity of a lifetime. You know, like, people are like, oh, it's 6 pages. That's not many pages. But you have to remember, Batman's first story was a 6-page story. So look what was born from that. And that's the sort of attitude I try to take. And I think it was 1939 was the first issue or something like that. Wow. So it was 38 or 39. I'm pretty sure it was 39. But so if that could be a 6-page story and so much could be born from it, each one of these is. And also, it was, to be frank, it took me a long time to break into comic book writing at all. So I do not take it for granted because it was so hard to do it, you know? Yeah. But I wanted to ask you guys, like, so you guys have built this really cool ecosystem as a YouTube channel. Like, what's your guys' long-term goal? Like, what do you really do it for? Like, I want to hear, like, what's the modus operandi, you know?
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, it's really just expressing my passion and love for toys in a form that's, you know, natural for me, meaningful, you know, meaningful to me and things like that. So, like, I've been a lover of toys like ever since I can imagine. And so I was funny. I was telling the folks in the Loyal Subjects booth this story when I was looking at the Mask toys. Like, Mask, the toys as a kid meant so much to me. I had a second like twin bed in my room, and I would display my Mask toys on that bed. So, like, and you know, the reason for starting, you know, Toy Habits, it started as a YouTube channel, was just expressing that passion for toys and just the love of toys. Like, we don't cover, like, I think we probably cover maybe like 30% of the toy news out there, but it's stuff that we're passionate about and it's stuff that we love. And it was really, you know, I would spend my nights just thinking about toys, and just also, I noticed there was a lack of information that was coming out about toys. And so I wanted to fill that void of, like, how can we get like credible, reliable information out to fans? And it's funny because when you said what, you started writing for the Minicomics around was it Wave 11? Is that right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of cool because we started reporting on possible things that were coming out around Wave 10. So it's like we started this process pretty soon, like just a tiny bit before you started writing for the Minicomics. And so, you know, back then we got so much backlash and so much hate for, like, the first time that we were like, oh, you know, this could be the Wave 10 figure assortment. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's BS, you're clickbait and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, it was genuine. I was like, no, this is actually could be coming out. And so, like, once fans got a history and, you know, of like, oh, they know what they're talking about, then, you know, that subsided pretty much. And our fan base is amazing. Like, we have the best Toy Habits crew. We have the best, like, just a bunch of positive people in the chat, in our live streams. You know, we do pour about 90% of the work, you know, that we do is for our website. And then we do like a weekly live stream just to talk about the news and just to interact with the fans. So
no, you guys do a great job, and, like, you can feel the love for sure. And I would say that, like, one thing, you know, I spoke to Brian Volkwise, who's a buddy, and Brian Volkwise created the Toys That Made Us, and he produces amazing documentaries about pop culture, like Icons on Earth. He's also spearheading the whole Nacellverse initiative, and he's doing great guy. I love Brian, true blue toy collector. And we both work in entertainment. And I said to him, you know, I've worked with a lot of communities in entertainment. I've worked with movie people, I've worked with TV people, I've worked with animation people, I've worked with people in the science fiction literary scene, I've worked with comic book people. But my favorite people are the toy people. Oh. And he absolutely agreed. And he definitely has worked with everyone in that sphere. And the reason I think I love the toy people so much, or the reason is because there's a spirit of play. And that's really cool, you know?
Yes.
And that's really cool. And I feel like a lot of communities don't have that. It's a very special element of this community. I mean, And a lot of why I give toys away is because people have given me toys, or like they could tell that, oh, if I sell you my toys, because I bought collections before, like they're gonna really go to a home that cares. So like to me, it's that spirit that you want to like hold on to and pass on, and carry that torch. So to me, that's really great. And I know all these channels, including yours, have that, and you could definitely feel that love when watching the program and checking all this stuff out. And also clearly through the collections you guys have behind. I mean, those displays look amazing.
You can't even get to see the room next to me.
Her space is epic.
Are you guys okay? So wait, are you guys mainly like do you do min on card plus like loose complete, or like are you like you open everything? Like what's your proclivities as collectors?
So I open up most of the stuff. If I really like it, for example, I will keep an extra carded one just because I'm like, Hero is my favorite. I want to keep a nice one on card. I have very few vintage carded items because obviously they're very expensive, but I also want to play with my toys. I want to hold them. I want to appreciate them. I want to just stare at them, and they're amazing. But so I have a mix, and it's weird. I've got maybe, I want to say 70% vintage, 30% new, something around that mix. I get very excited about vintage toys because they have a history to them. When you pick up the box, there's a little bit of wear on the edges. It's seen something. It's gone through life, and someone else owns.
You're just waiting for her to bust out a bazooka. Like, see, like I got this bazooka here.
And so there's a history.
You see the battle damage.
And that's what I appreciate. And it's funny because growing up, like my parents didn't really buy me toys. I got something maybe once a year for like Hanukkah, and I spent a lot of time on the weekends with my grandmother, who took care of us because my parents had to work, and I had to sneak off to Toys R Us with my sister.
Wait, you're from Argentina.
I'm Argentinian. I grew up here. But
you're Jewish. But you're Jewish also.
I am Jewish, yes, and
really cool.
and I came here when I was.
But you're Jewish too.
I'm Jewish. Yeah. I'm Argentinian. My grandparents were like
guilty as charged as well. Guilty as charged as well, guys. We're all of us. Okay, cool.
There we go.
That's awesome. That's
take
awesome.
that, anti-Semites. Anyway.
Yes, thank you. We're all part of the tribe. So it's funny. So I got to spend weekends with my grandmother, and she would cook her delicious Jewish meals and leave me and my sister in the park playing. Like it was in our complex, the complex she lived at. So we'd sneak off to Toys R Us, and I would go and save my allowance money and buy myself a toy. So my parents wouldn't really buy me anything, and then I'd come back to go upstairs to go to dinner and like sneak it up in my shirt because I couldn't get toys, right? So when I was able to actually, sneak it into the house and like smuggle it in, I cherished that toy. I loved it, and I spent like a lot of time playing with it, and it meant like a lot to me. I only have a few figures from my childhood. I call them my childhood survivors. My original Aquaman, I always tell the story. I still have him, but those toys meant a lot to me. And I think part of the reason I became a toy collector is because I cherish the memories of growing up and hanging out with my sister and those wonderful times I spent with my grandmother and getting to sneak off to Toys R Us to buy myself toys. But they've meant a lot to me because it really fulfilled me as a child. And now maybe I'm overcompensating the fact that I could afford to buy my own toys. I don't need someone to buy them for me. And that drove me to become, the toy collector that I am. And
I'm pretty sure we all have the same problem.
Yeah,
we do, right? Of course, with COVID and being home bored.
Yeah.
What did you do? You went on eBay and you kind of, the stuff started to grow. So I think, the journey has been incredible. Getting to do this with Michael has been amazing. I think, we were brought together by Hero and his staff. Yes. And that's one reason he is my absolute favorite character.
Oh.
But, and here it is. And this journey has been incredible, and it's also been meant to be. I think me and Michael and Toy Habits has been meant to be. It's weird, like my father-in-law and like his parents have been best friends for 20 years, but I just met Michael like 4 years ago.
Yeah, we had no idea that they were best friends.
We had no idea that they were, knew each other. Yeah, so it's like the universe brought us together because MOTU has had this incredible resurgence, and our little part of it here is to enjoy this with the fans, to bring them the information, to get to be part of the community. And I think our little part to help the fandom grow and keep going, to kind of help not just like not that we're like advertising for it or anything, but we're true fans, and we're helping get the word out there to spread the joy and to spread the word to new fans and new collectors, and just kind of help MOTU grow and
Yeah.
keep it alive, right? Because
Well, you're doing
obviously
great. You guys are doing
gotta
great
do the
work.
things.
And to me, they're not just action figures or play
Yes.
sets, right? What it is, what these toys are, is they're really passports to
Yes.
imagination. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
almost like a totem that gives you permission to transport yourself in that world, right? And to play, right? And they
Yeah.
look really cool. Let's be honest. I mean, they look
yeah.
like they just stepped out of the artwork, right?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
funny. Like I call this room the time machine because it's literally like you're stepping back into time and you're being transported into, you know, either the 80s or, you know, whatever, wherever era you want. But kind of going back to the, you know, your question about just collecting, I think I'm the same as the toy sorceress. Like I think my stuff is about 70% vintage, about 30% new, but I do have a like passion for like childhood memories and stuff that has sentimental value. So I have like a sentimental shelf. A lot. So I spent summers back in New Jersey with my grandparents, and I'm looking at it right now. So there are things that I will buy for god awful prices because they meant something to me. So, you know, it might not be the coolest figure. Like I'm looking at a Transformers blaster figure, right? It was the Autobot tape deck. Not, you know, it's not Megatron, it's not Optimus Prime, but
It's not Soundwave.
right. I remember my grandfather giving that to me, and he bought it for me at this department store called Bradley's. And when I came across a vintage Autobot blaster in the box with a Bradley sticker on it, I was like, I need that. Like, I need that back in my life. So
That's awesome.
yeah, there's things that I will collect on card, but most of the stuff is like open. Like I love displaying it. Like all the stuff should breathe, right? And be placed.
Yes.
I think a lot of it is also bringing our childhood to life and also making the childhood we really wanted in the first place sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yes.
you know, I feel like a lot of people deal with things in their lives different ways. And I think a really healthy way to deal with it is toy collecting and comic books and sci-fi and all that stuff. I think that's like the healthiest way, honestly, to deal with things. And I feel myself a rich person, honestly, when I go through my comic collection, not because the comics are worth so much money or anything like that, or that my sci-fi paperback novels or my toys. You just feel like some people want gold and silver, which, trust me, money's great. Like, you know, like, don't get me wrong, right? But you need that money to get the toys, right? So, but what I mean by that is like, but like when I look at my toy collection or my stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, this stuff is, and it's not the stuff, it's where it takes you.
Yes.
And the journey it took to get them and get there as well, right? The toy hunt, the stories behind buying things or going on those adventures with your friends and finding the toys and
the hunt. I love Hunter's Tales. I love Hunter's Tales. I love seeing people's hauls. I love hearing when people get lucky and they land an insane collection for like where someone just wanted them to have it for a great price.
Yeah.
I love those stories.
Do you actually go to toy shows? Like I live in LA as well, so I mean,
I didn't know you go to toy shows. That's so cool.
Absolutely.
I didn't know, I know you went to toy shows.
Weekend.
I didn't know you lived in Los Angeles. That's so cool.
Yeah, I went to one last weekend.
I do go to toy shows. I do go to works. I've been working a lot, which is a blessing. And also I'm married and have family and stuff. So sometimes it's a little challenging, but I definitely do. I'm also like, I have a healthy amount of stuff. So I had to shed, unfortunately. So I have to be very choosy about it. I've been trying to be choosier, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm still getting that snake layer.
What's that insect that like sheds its skin like once a year? Like you just have to like cleanse. You got to like shed. I almost
got rid of some of my sci-fi paperbacks, and I'm like, how dare I even dream?
Oh my gosh,
no. You know, like so. But no, I love the hunt. I love going to bookstores. I love going to toy shows. Toy shows are great because like a lot of people just like they're like, oh, I want to get rid of this, and you're like, oh my gosh, I really, I've been collecting the new Adventurers He-Man figures, which are kind of harder to get than a lot of the vintage He-Man figures, especially complete and loose. Those have been. You probably have an easier time getting those in the box with all their accessories than like open, right? So than open and complete. So, but yeah, toy shows. I've gotten very lucky here in Los Angeles. I had a coworker who was like, he's like, yeah, I'm getting rid of some of the toys. I'm like, you don't have like GI Joes, do you? He's like, dude, I have like so many GI Joes. You have no idea. And I'm like, and then he pings me. He's like, you're not into like G1 Transformers, are you? And I'm like, yes. So I got that was like probably one of the greatest toy hauls. But even he had a story behind it. His mom had sadly passed away, and when he was a kid, he came from a divorced family, and when he was a kid, like his mom would take him like once a week to like Culver City Toys R Us, and they would buy.
That was my Toys R Us that I would sneak off to by my grandma's house.
Right. So now that I have these toys, I feel like I can't like trade or sell these toys. I'm like all of a sudden this like caretaker for them, and I mean love them. Trust me. And there's awesome Star Wars stuff in there. I posted on my Instagram. You guys can check it out. Like but you have to probably scroll down for a bit. But it's at Joshua Skywriter, shameless plug. But in all truth, like there are really cool toy hauls for those people if you want to see that collection. I call it the caretaker collection. I should post more about it.
They're from my childhood Toys R Us that I would go and sneak off to with my sister is incredible. Like to know that there's pieces from there. And I was probably
there's another flip side though to it. It's like sometimes I imagine like when we're buying it's almost like I bet there's like a short story here somewhere, but it's almost like bartering fragments of childhood, right? When you're like buying toys and collectibles, right? Or maybe it's like Kane's Soul Reaver, right? Where you like get the toy and like their soul like gets sucked up, and you're like, So I'm just messing around. So, yeah,
that's awesome. That is so cool. I love that. I love that story. Yes, it's amazing how a passion and a hobby that we all have bring us all together with such warmth and joy. And part of what we do, just naturally want to bring to our viewers is a positive place where everyone can come and share their passion for toy collecting and have a safe space. And it's because me and Michael are naturally that way. We're happy people. We're very positive about things. We keep it that way on the channel. And we want everybody who watches, I mean, they're generally friends of ours. Sometimes we run into them at toy shows or conventions, and it's great to get to meet them in person and hang out. And, we talk to them on Discord, and, our Toy Habits crew really is part of the crew. I consider them friends. I think that they're great. And all the people who watch our channel, I was so proud of one of our members, Giraffe, and also Mr. Home Arcade, because they were both called out by name on that MOTU live stream for the Snake Layer. And then I don't remember what the woman's name is who was running the live stream, but she called out their name, and I felt so proud, that they were like on the screen.
It's a much more tight knit community.
And I was that's so great.
Yeah, no, it's a much more tight knit community than we imagined. I think, but no, it's an incredible community.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I think that's about it. Unless, was there anything else you guys wanted to talk about, or did you have any other questions?
No, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure, having you here today, just hearing your stories and just the passion that you've had for, writing and for toys, and just this general space has been amazing. And I'm so happy that we got to meet you in person at SDCC and we got to have this amazing conversation. Would also love to do it again if you're
for sure. Yeah, 100%. And if you guys hear of cool toy shows, let me know. I'm actually going. While I've got you, actually, I just realized I should mention this. I'm going to be at Jolanta in September.
Oh, great!
In Atlanta, which is run by the same crew that put together Toylanta, which was such a blast. I had so much fun at that toy show. So when I heard it was the same people who did Toylanta, I'm like, I definitely want to go to Jolanta. So I'm going to be going to Jolanta in September. That's awesome. It's not just G.I. Joe. It's going to be MOTU and Transformers and all the stuff we love. So, cool. So I'm really excited about that. And then for anyone who also wants to read other stuff, I've got other stuff coming out in Heavy Metal Illustrated. Issue 2 just hit the newsstands. I'll have stuff in issue 3. And, of course, I have stuff in the recent issue number 1 relaunch. And I've been writing short stories for Forbidden Futures. And I think it's issue 14, which is about to hit. I wrote a story called Dreamer, which is really fun. It was just a really fun science fiction story. And what else do I've got? All sorts of stuff. And of course, more He-Man stuff, which is like on the horizon.
That's awesome.
So definitely check it out.
Ask one last question. Growing up, what was your favorite toy line? And do you still have one toy or one thing that's your absolute favorite that you would like have to grab if God forbid there was a fire? We always make that joke, right? Like, what is the thing that you would save? Like, this is like your cherished item.
Oh my gosh.
That's always a hard
Oh my
one.
gosh, that's really hard. I try to save all my children.
I know, right?
Yes, of course. Okay, with the caveat, your family's outside, they're safe, everything's good, and you had a moment to go and into
The
your
toys
toy
are
room.
the children. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm actually gonna have my first kid. In the future, my first kid watches. Hey, Dad, what the hell is this? Anyway. Now you know the pecking order, son. The toys go first. Anyway, no, I would say, gosh, that's so hard. I really, a lot of my comic books, of course, and then toy wise, like, gosh, I would say probably stuff that I really would have a hard time replacing. You know, you just see me outside like with an attorney at playset on my back.
It's funny. I have to ask that question because I live in an area that is sort of prone to wildfires, and I found myself.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, exactly. So I found myself in that position a couple of times over the last few years, and it was really hard. Like, what do I take? What do I grab? And I had to kind of prep a little bit of a, hey, we might have to leave the house type of situation. But it makes you always stop and think. It's interesting, right? To like kind of think about, you know, what your favorite toys, and it's hard. Like we, as toy collectors,
right.
We have such varied interests.
No, 100%. 100%. I think honestly, one thing that was missing in my life that I wish I could find on Maui that we lost somehow were family photos of growing up. And I would say, like, to me, I would pay money for sure to get those back.
Absolutely.
But I can tell if they'll be AI, folks. But anyway, and try to hand me some Blade Runner false memory photos. But anyway, so no, I really would love those back, honestly. So you know, but you know, I have friends who've lost collections in the fires and the Altadena fire and such. And one of the probably the greatest comic book collection I'd ever seen in my life. And I've seen a lot of comic collections, guys.
Yeah.
And he lost virtually all of it. And he said that he's been rebuilding his collection. And he said that the comics that he had very valuable comic books, very valuable, that were just, you know, turned to ash.
Wow.
And he said that some of the ones that he's wanted back the most were ones that weren't even worth a lot of money, that just he grew up reading. You know, I gave him some of my extras that were like key comics and stuff, because again, I felt like it was a nice thing to pass on, because again, it you know, we always like, I feel like, yes, there's definitely some money in these collectibles, no doubt.
Nothing to do
but
with
there's a lot easier ways to make money, and sometimes like the feelings that you pass on are more important, and the good mana than like, you know, a couple of bucks and stuff. So I just feel like, again, you know, unless it's not like a mint on card like He-Man or something, pass that stuff on if you got extras, you know.
Absolutely.
But anyway, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time, and it's been so fun. Let's definitely do it again. Stay in touch, you know, ping me on Instagram. You know, I love all that stuff. And I, you know, post cool stuff, show me cool hauls. I love all that stuff, guys.
That's awesome. So Josh, just for a recap, tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure.
I know you mentioned your IG page.
Please follow me on my Instagram, or you can follow me there at Joshua Sky Writer. So it's just my name, Joshua Sky, and the word writer. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys reading, and thanks for watching this too.
Awesome.
Thank you for what you do for the MOTU community. It's so amazing. It's been extra special getting to talk to you about this, since we're fans, and like MOTU is our biggest line that we love. We're centered on, and it's just been an honor to have you on our show. The
honor's mutual. Thanks so much, guys.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and the door is always open. Come back anytime, and we'll pick off where we left off. And for our viewers, we'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. And thanks so much for tuning into Toy Habits. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.